make sure that it's not because it's a bad link that people aren't in line. Oh, and today's not the 26th. Let me change that. Silly me. Today is the 25th. Getting exciting for payday. So Lynn, you get in? All right, so I'm just trying to get some kinks out, make sure the Zoom link is working live because I don't really see a lot of you guys coming in live on it. So I just want to make sure that's working. And I'm gonna tell you, while I'm trying to figure that out, I'm gonna go ahead and tell you what you're doing today. You are gonna work on your sketch assignment because you have one daily, and you're gonna work on your U project. And then I'm going to show you a little slideshow like I did yesterday about the art elements, but today I'm going to do the principles of design, and you're going to have a discussion question to answer just like you did yesterday. Can't get in.
This says second period foundations.
So it is a bad link. Okay, well, everybody watching this recording link, I'm going to make a new Zoom because I now realize that you guys cannot get in to this Zoom, but I'm going to record this one and then I'm going to make a whole new reoccurring Zoom link because for some reason that one's linking to a second period. Everybody knows that they have their assignments here under modules. Oh, sketchbook assignment. So you did yesterday's sketch assignment, The Last Supper. Today, your sketch assignment is, I think, just to do the written information, which you may have already done. So you're just going to include this written information about that painting, and you probably don't realize it, but when you write things down, it kind of, obviously you're not going to have a test on any of this information, but I know for a fact that if I write something down, I can remember it, I process it better. And it's much better than me standing up here saying that to you. Because if I'm standing up here saying all this to you, you might be listening, you might not. But when you're writing it down, it's your hand and it gets into your brain. So make sure you're doing that. You're going to submit all of those on Friday. We're also going today to... Okay. Also today, I'm going to do a little explanation about the principles of design, because we're going to do a design project with that. Come on. Sorry, y'all. Close this one out. Okay. So yesterday we did the what are the art elements little slide presentation, and you guys answered this very easy discussion question. Today we're going to do the same thing, except it's for the principles of design, which you might not be as familiar with as you were in with the art elements. I also want you to, in your sketchbook, to list the principles of design: pattern, balance, movement, rhythm, emphasis, contrast, and unity, and try to draw some sort of picture that represents that. I'm going to show you this presentation right now. In intermediate art, this is the second art, so we try to take the art elements which you went through extensively in foundations, which are the tools that you use in art, and how you organize them, how you present them is more of the design principles. Okay, so the principles of designs are pattern, which you're familiar with, balance, movement, rhythm, emphasis, contrast, unity, and harmony. A repeating of an element within a composition or section of a composition is pattern. We know that. We've done Zentangle patterns. Anything that's repeated in some sort of shape or design is a pattern. So we're pretty familiar with the pattern part, like the zebra and the zebra stripes. Sorry. Kind of got a mind of its own. So like I just said, animals tend to have a lot of pattern on them. They're, you know, either stripes or spots or feather designs like in peacocks. There's, you know, typically pattern in animals. You can see pattern in like a cathedral ceiling, pattern, not a cathedral ceiling, a cathedral window. Sometimes you see that in certain places. In repetition of sculptures that are adorning, be it a church or this is Notre Dame in France, which burnt down. Well, not burned down, but it caught on fire a couple of years ago, if you remember that. But you know, all of this ornamentation right here are sculptures. They're 3D, and that's pattern. That's repetition. All this design. All this design in the architecture pattern. There's pattern everywhere. We know that. We see it in nature with seashells. Here's the Chrysler Building in New York. You can see a lot of, you know, repetition, pattern normally makes things very orderly. Artists use pattern all the time. This is Chuck Close. He's a very famous artist. These things are gigantic, but they're individual little patterns that when you're back away from it makes, you know, a self-portrait. Jasper Johns, he's doing a painting with a repetition of the numbers and the colors and, you know, that particular paint style. There's pattern in the floor. Balance in visual art can be formal, informal, and radial. You should probably know a little bit about this from Art One. Formal balance places equal or very similar objects on either side of a central axis. You know, think your mantle at home. You might have a mirror in the middle, and then on one side you might have like a tall candlestick, and on the other side you might have a tall frame. So it's not complete, you know, exactly symmetrical, but they have the same balance. That tall picture frame and that tall candle, you know, kind of weigh each other out. Radial balance starts from the center, works out. You might be familiar with that. We did a little of that in Art One. Think of a flower, the flower, like, you know, they always has, or even a sunflower, or even the sun, you know, with the rays, anything that starts in the middle and radiates out. A hub, is that called a hub for your tire? You know, a hub for your tire. You know, they've got some really cool designs. Everything starts from the middle and works out. And then informal balance is a balance of unlike objects. So think back to your mantle again, and you know, you might have, you know, a whole bunch of a vase with a whole bunch of flowers on one side, and then over here you might have a teeny tiny little snow globe. So that's not quite, you know, as balanced as if it was a picture frame and a candle. So here's formal balance, symmetry. If we cut ourselves down the middle, we're, for the most part, symmetrical. Same with this particular front facade of this building. It's the same on both sides. Might not be exactly the same, like the motifs here are a little bit different, but for the most part, it's very symmetrical. Informal balance. This is a great example. You have Starry Night of Vincent van Gogh. That kind of goes with what I was just talking about with the mantle. You have this juniper type tree over here, and then nothing over there. There's nothing that balances that out. This is more for a focal point. Same thing here with the haystack. You got one side with something and not the other. And this is more just kind of right here. There's not really amounts of anything because it's more central. And then radial balance, the color wheel, designs, anything repetitive, seashells, all of that, all of those patterns and certain seashells radiate from one center. Movement, and bear with me, I normally am not just saying all this, but I'm trying to give y'all some thought process for some projects coming up, and just knowing these words that we're going to be using. Movement is a visual direction created by the elements of art, because remember, the elements are, you know, how we organize everything with the principles of the design, but we use the art elements to achieve all of this. Movement can be created with pattern, or, you know, repeating a single shape over and over. Perfect example in Vincent van Gogh's Starry Night, there's quite a lot of movement in the sky, that whole repetitive line, the way he's painted in these thick brush strokes, and he's kind of, you know, kind of dash them along. That creates a lot of movement. Here in this, with the values and the way it's been kind of shaded and rendered in paint, you get a sense that, you know, they're with the value that is added to the paint, you get a sense that this horse is rushing in, this horse is, you know, not moving as fast. There's a lot of visual movement, and then sometimes we just have pure visual movement, and meaning, you know, there's not something that your brain can, a lot of abstract art a lot of the time has visual movement. But you guys don't realize this, you look from, like, you read a book from left to right, the same way when we look at art a lot of times. So typically the artist is gonna kind of grab you over here, they're gonna visually move you in your eyes through this whole painting. It's kind of crazy when you start looking at how artists kind of keep you wrapped up. Like, you probably start here, you can tell, you can even see these shapes. You know, it kind of brings you, and look, right here, brings you back right in here. So you're absorbing this whole image. So you can also have visual movement. And all of these elements are placed that way to create that you're gonna absorb all of this. And typically you end up here back in the center. Rhythm, we all know rhythm with music and dance. It's repetition of visual movement. Color, shapes, lines. Variety is essential to keep the rhythm exciting and active to the viewer. Variety meaning it's not all the same. It might be thick, thin. Marcel Duchamp. This nude descending a staircase is back in the Cubist style, when everything's kind of angular. But you can tell that he's taken these shapes, because the movement is using the art elements. He's taken these shapes and they are repeated over and over as it's kind of descending the staircase. And each time he's repeating them, they might change a little bit, but you get that sense that something is coming down this staircase. You can feel the movement. It's kind of like if you freeze framed an image, like, you know, when you're videotaping or something, it's just kind of like stop. And you get that sense of movement, rhythm, excuse me. This is very active. Like, when you're looking at this, you feel some action going on. You should intuitively feel some action going on. Colosseum, there's rhythm here, but not in a trying to make you move. There's rhythm here in the repetition of the columns that hold this, you know, monument up. Same thing here with the trees. We know when we've done perspective, things going back into space, you know, they you know, go from larger to middle ground to about, you know, large, middle. But this whole repetition makes you know that, oh, okay, we're going, you know, whether that car was there or not. You get that sense of rhythm. It's just a nice, easy rhythm. And all of these create some sort of, you know, this might be very tranquil to look at. All of these are very, you know, peaceful and tranquil to look at. Repetition of elements is a photograph in nature. All these trees in this bog are repeated over and over and over and over and over, and it gives you this kind of just visual rhythm in these images. These are all 3 photographs. Emphasis. I love emphasis. Emphasis, we use it with our voices. If you've taken theater classes, or if you ever hear your teachers start, you know, emphasizing certain words, typically that means that's an important word. You intuitively are already like, oh, I need to write that down. Emphasis is used to create dominance and focus in an artwork. So artists can emphasize color, value, shape, or other art elements to achieve dominance. We're going to do a project with that, with specifically emphasis. Various kinds of contrast. We're also going to do something with contrast coming up very soon. Can be used to emphasize a center of interest. So all that blah, blah, blah translates into, you know, a visual. There's emphasis. This woman's head right here is quite large, and she's cut off the page, but that gives some emphasis to that side of the painting. Same thing here. This kind of is like it's kind of like tunnel vision. When you first look at this painting, you're like, I know I'm all in the way. You're like here, and then next thing you know, your eyes are moving in and moving in, and so this is emphasis here. Everything, every way, all of these, all the way at the angles and different heights of everybody brings emphasis here, but oh, something else going on over here. This makes you want to linger with this. What's going on? It's telling a story. Emphasis, back in the background, you know, it's not all colored in. It's, you know, it still could be all included in this plant, but the emphasis here is in the center and in the plant. If all of this had been colored in perfect, painted in perfect, it might not look, I mean, it might be, you know, kind of boring to look at. This lack of, you know, filling it in and just nice contour lines, really in contrast to the things colored in, just keeps a really good emphasis here. Emphasis, his eyes are looking down to her. You know, it might be relatively dark around the painting, and then it gets lighter in here, and the emphasis, you know, is this child sitting in, you know, is that her dad's lap? Is that her grandfather's lap? You know, all of this brings, if this, all these things of our element weren't being used with the principles of design, this would get lost. You wouldn't want to look at it. It would not intrigue your eyes. But it's amazing the psychological reasons that these design principles, you know, bring it home and really let you see what you need to be looking at, and they capture you. If there wasn't, you know, if this hadn't been done this way, even if it had been just like in a contour line, you might not linger with it. That, you know, also color, you know, plays in parts with this, with emotions and things. But if this was just a contour line drawing, I don't think it would have the hold that it captures you with. Contrast. Contrast is, you know, things, you know, like if you had a group of green apples and there's one red apple in it, that's a contrast. It's an opposite. I'm pretty sure that you video, when you're taking pictures, taking selfies or whatever, you can go in and edit. You can increase the brightness. You can also increase the darkness. That's a contrast. Contrasts create visual excitement and add interest to the work. If all the art elements are the same, the result is unexciting and boring to the viewer. So this should be obvious. You know, exactly, the value scale. When you're editing a picture, it might look better if you increase the brightness, or it might look better if you increase the contrast. It's a competitive visual design. So, you know, the contrast in the older man is everything in the background is light, and he pretty much, you know, has a dark suit on. He's sitting in a dark chair. Same with this particular image of a still life. The background, things that are not as important are a lot darker. Things that, you know, the painting is about, this still life. So they're a lot brighter. There's a contrast, very even contrast between these light, bright whites that the fruit are sitting on compared to the background, compared to the water jug. Same with this right here. If the background had been just as dark and, you know, not light, he would be lost. This would be lost. It would look like, you know, you're looking at it with a candlelight on. Perfect example of photography and contrast. The areas of the mountain that does not have snow on it, you know, it's got that dark earthy tone, and, you know, obviously where the snow is, it's very, very bright. You can even tell there's levels, you know, there's the brightest white, but then, you know, as the mountain is moving, or, you know, because it's dimensional, there's the shadows of the white. This is a high contrast image. Unity and harmony. These are kind of, a lot of this stuff I'm telling you is not like, oh, I know that. I mean, they're subjective, like I mean, these are all kind of like subconscious things. Unity provides the cohesive quality that makes an artwork feel complete and finished. So even back in Art 1, when I, you know, go around and look, and, you know, you might think you were done, I might say, well, what if you took, you know, that hand and repeated one more up here coming this way? I'm trying to create some sort of unity, some finished look, like in a composition. Unity is achieved when all the elements in a work look as though they belong together. And one way to do this is by clustering elements together within an artwork. So these birds all together create visual unity, the same with the repetition of the trees. But here again, like exactly what I'm talking about, like say this is something that you created, and I came by and this wasn't here, and, you know, maybe some of this wasn't here. I might say, let's repeat, you know, one of these tree things over here, or let's balance all these dark birds right here with something dark over here. This is unity, making it look like it was planned. Sometimes you draw things and do things. I'm gonna show you on my U poster, I don't know today, but you want to make sure things are balanced and have unity and look like you did them. Sometimes you end up having to make something else just to make it look more finished. No, sorry. So you can use elements to make things look unified and harmonious, meaning they all like kind of chime together. Obviously up here, the red shapes, you know, keep it all together. The colors, the art elements in this are shape, color, not so much value. There's not that much, you know, pretty much most of the colors are the same. But back in Art 1, based on your art elements, you can see that color and shape is used here to make this harmonious. Down here, we're still dealing with shape, we're still dealing with color, but we have a little bit more value also introduced to this, so we can tell that it's like some sort of, like you're walking into a city. Those are some art elements that make these harmonious. And then, as interesting enough, your sketch yesterday was the principles of design. I mean, it was the Last Supper, and look at all of the principles of design that are in it. There is pattern, there is balance. There is nothing more balanced than this particular painting. You have your disciples over here, you have your disciples over here, you have Jesus in the middle. That is a perfect example of balance. You have movement. I think I showed you, I thought I showed you one day, all their eyes and this pointed finger and this pointed finger. Same thing over here. The hands. There's a whole bunch. We could study this painting every day and not, know enough about it. But there's so many different ways that's creating movement, and there's particular people in this that are with different movement and how things are placed, they're kind of like put on a spotlight here. Emphasis, your emphasis is central here. How are we getting that? Look up here. We've got these lines, perspective lines, all coming down. Same on that side, all coming down. All of that is bringing emphasis to, even though there's busy stuff going on here, there's emphasis here. Contrast, the table, the lightness and the darkness outside. All of these figures have a glow to them in contrast to the background, which keeps you right here. Leonardo didn't really want you to be caring, what the ceiling up there looked like. And unity. This is probably one of the most unified, balanced, to use all of the principles into this is, just an amazing concept. So that is a little introduction to Principles of Design. I love Principles of Design. We're used to the art elements because we need the art elements to create things, but there's so much that you can do with Principles of Design. So in your sketchbook today, I want to make sure that you can write those unity pattern. I want to know if you can draw an example of all of these. You'll see in this one and yesterday, there's always kind of like a little magazine picture. If we were here in the classroom, we would be cutting out and you would have to find in a magazine and you would have to create one, but that's not the case. Also today, in addition to your sketchbook, you have a discussion question to answer related to what I just showed you somewhere right here, discussion question. And I'm going to introduce your next project tomorrow. All right, so we're going to save that. We're not going to do that today. I'm going to introduce it tomorrow. So do your discussion question. I'm going to get a whole new Zoom account for y'all so you can start living in. I'm sorry, I wish somebody had emailed me sooner about this. And I'm going to post this video right now.